Imagine this. You're standing in the middle of Central Park on a crisp autumn morning. The air is sharp, the leaves are burning orange, and your breath catches in your throat knot from the cold. But from what you've just seen, a woman, maybe late 20s, in a pale blue coat, has been chasing a butterfly. Not just walking after it, chasing it. Sprinting, twisting, stumbling across the grass like her life depends on catching this single, stunning creature with electric blue wings. And then something happens. She stops. Not because she's tired, but because something inside her breaks or clicks. She drops to the ground beneath an old elm, eyes wide, chest heaving, and that butterfly, the one that refused her every step, returns. It circles her once, twice, and lands, softly, silently, on her shoulder. You can hear the silence. You can feel it. Something has changed, not just in the air, but in the rules. And if you're paying attention, you realize this wasn't about a butterfly at all. It was about you. Because haven't you done the same thing? Chased, forced, clutched at your dreams until your fists ached, only to watch them slip through your fingers like smoke. This story isn't fiction. Not really. It's a mirror. It's the truth we all dodge in a world obsessed with hustle, grit, and constant pursuit. We're told to want more, do more, push harder. As if life owes us something if we just prove we want it badly enough. But what if that's the lie? What if the power doesn't lie in chasing but in stopping? The ancient warriors of the mind saw this clearly. Marcus Aurelius, emperor and philosopher, once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength, not control, not force, but strength, real power." That's the paradox. What you're running after is actually waiting for you to be still. This is what I call the butterfly principle, and it's not motivational fluff. It's a brutal, beautiful truth that what's meant for you cannot be chased, it must be allowed, because the moment you let go, not give up, but truly let go, everything changes. You stop vibrating with desperation. You stop grasping. And in that stillness, you become magnetic. The woman in the park, her name is Ava. She's not different from you. She's been where you are, striving, aching, trying to force the universe into submission. But in that breathless surrender, she discovered something most people never do. When you stop chasing, life begins chasing you, and that's the moment your entire world turns. So before we dive deeper into this story and the hidden wisdom that could shift your entire life, take 1 second and hit that subscribe button. If you feel even a flicker of resonance, if your chest tightens or your mind whispers yes, then you're exactly where you need to be. Support this channel so we can keep uncovering the kind of truth that doesn't just inspire, it transforms. Now, let me leave you with this question. Don't overthink it. Just answer from your gut. Which belief feels more true to you right now? A. The harder I chase, the faster my dreams come true. B. When I stop chasing, the right things come to me. Drop your answer in the comments below, A or B, and let's see how many of us are ready to rewrite the rules together. Luca never planned to be an artist. It was something that chose him in the quiet hours of his childhood, when his parents argued in the next room, and he would find solace sketching shadows on old newspapers. By the time he reached his 20s, he had traded back alley walls for studio canvases and moved from the worn corners of Naples to the romantic maze of Venice. But something strange began to happen the moment he tried to turn his passion into success. Everything stopped flowing. Each morning, Luca entered his studio with a mission: create, impress, sell. But instead of inspiration, he met resistance. His hands, once fluid with color and movement, felt tight and mechanical. His mind, once wild with imagery, now looped through fears. Will they like this? Is it good enough? Why hasn't anyone called me back? One night, under the dim light of a canal-side cafe, a friend said something that struck him silent. Maybe You're trying too hard to control what was never meant to be controlled. Luca couldn't sleep that night. He walked the empty bridges of Venice until sunrise, questioning everything. And that morning, he returned to his studio not to sell, but to feel. He lit a single candle, put on an old piece of instrumental, cello music, and told himself, no rules today, no thinking, no goal, just hands and color. And there it was. Flow. The brush seemed to move on its own. Shapes formed without logic, but full of soul. For the first time in months, he didn't care what it looked like. He cared only about how it felt. What emerged wasn't technically perfect, but it was alive. This became Luca's quiet ritual. Each morning before the emails and deadlines, before the phone rang, he would surrender control. A candle, a song, a canvas, and presence. The Stoics spoke often about living in accordance with nature. Not the trees or the sea, but our own inner rhythm, our alignment, our essence. When we push beyond that natural flow, when we force something breaks, when we surrender to it, we return to harmony. Alan Watts once said, muddy water is best, cleared by leaving it alone. Luca learned that stillness wasn't laziness, was precision. It was where the mind stepped aside, and the soul stepped in. Modern psychology has a word for what Luca experienced, flow state. It's the sacred place where time dissolves, where action and awareness merge, and where what we do becomes effortless, because we are finally doing it with life, not against it. After a few weeks of this new rhythm, things began to shift. A passerby in Venice noticed one of his works displayed in a side window. That passerby turned out to be a gallery curator from Paris. Within a month, Luca's pieces were on a train across the Alps. He hadn't pitched, networked, or cold called. He had flowed. This is not a call to be passive. Luca still painted daily. He still practiced, improved, showed up. But he did so without the chokehold of outcome. He released the obsession with how and surrendered to why. His purpose was not to sell art. His purpose was to make what only he could make and let life handle the rest. The deeper secret here isn't just about creativity. It's about every dream you hold. The more you force the process, whether it's love, career, health, or healing, the more you step out of alignment. Force says I don't trust. Flow says I already am. If you've ever felt like you're swimming upstream, maybe it's not because you're weak. Maybe it's because you're going the wrong way. Try this. Create without a plan. Speak without overthinking. Walk without a destination. Let one part of your life be free from strategy. And just watch what finds you when you stop forcing. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stop trying so hard. Yuki never spoke loudly, not because she didn't have anything to say, but because somewhere along the line, she'd learned that her voice wasn't meant to take up space. In the towering cityscape of Tokyo, she moved like a competent, always agreeable. She was the kind of person who rarely made mistakes, yet never quite stood out. But beneath the polished exterior was a quiet ache. The sense that she was living a life that had been scripted for her by someone else. The breaking point came in silence, as it often does, after another missed promotion and a relationship that dissolved without explanation. Yuki sat at her apartment window, watching the rain snake down the glass. Something in her whispered, maybe it's me. Maybe I'm not enough. That voice wasn't new. It had lived in her for years, buried beneath performance and politeness, and that's when it hit her. The pain wasn't just about the job or the breakup. It was about the story she had been telling herself. A story that had been playing in the background of every decision, every hesitation, every time she dimmed her lights so someone else could shine. We all have these scripts, quiet, invisible beliefs that run our lives without permission. The Stoics taught that external events mean nothing without our interpretation. It's not what happens to you, Epictetus said, but how you react to it that matters. But what if your reaction is pre-written? What if your interpretation is rooted in a belief you never chose? Yuki decided to rewrite the script. She started what she called her belief rewriting journal. Every evening, she would identify one limiting belief that had surfaced that day. Some were obvious, others were sneakier, like background noise you didn't realize was playing until the room went silent. She didn't just write them down, she challenged them. If the belief was, "I'm too quiet to lead," she would rewrite, "My quiet presence creates calm and clarity." If the belief was, "I'm invisible," she would counter, "My presence is powerful even when I'm still." But she didn't stop there. She found real evidence, no matter how small, that her new belief could be true. A compliment from a coworker, a time she spoke up and was heard. A memory of her younger self drawing strength from silence, not shame. At first, it felt like pretending. But the brain, as modern neuroscience now shows, is malleable. Thoughts repeated with emotion reshape the pathways of the mind. This is neuroplasticity. This is inner alchemy. Yuki wasn't pretending. She was rewiring. Over weeks, something shifted. She began to speak up once in meetings, then in brainstorming sessions, eventually leading a project with a quiet confidence no one had seen before. The promotion came without her asking. The validation she once chased now arrived as a reflection of who she had become. Because when you change your beliefs, your energy shifts. And when your energy shifts, your world recalibrates to match it. Most of us live from a blueprint we never questioned. We repeat stories inherited from our families, our culture, past failures, or careless words spoken long ago. But what if you could write a new chapter not with better strategies or louder ambition, but with different beliefs? This isn't about delusion. It's about permission. Permission to believe that you are enough, even if no one told you. That you can be powerful and quiet, bold and gentle, seen without shouting, chosen without changing. Yuki's transformation didn't come from the world changing around her. It came from her deciding that the voice in her head would no longer be her enemy. That belief, quiet and internal, was the most radical act of self-liberation. So the question becomes, what's the belief running your life? And more importantly, who would you become if you no longer believed it? Every future begins in the mind, and sometimes the only thing standing between you and what you want isn't luck, timing, or talent, but a script that needs to be rewritten. You don't have to believe the old lines anymore. You get to choose a new story, one that aligns with who you are, not who you were told to be. Elio hadn't played for an audience in months. Not since the last failed meeting with a record executive in Berlin. Not since the email that never came. The silence after years of hoping, rehearsing, performing. He'd packed away his dreams, quietly, like an old coat no longer worn, and returned to the streets of Montmartre, where it all began. Not to chase fame, but to remember. He set up on a quiet corner near Rue Lepic, where the old buildings leaned into each other like tired friends, and the scent of fresh bread floated through the air. He lifted his violin not to impress, not to be noticed, but because the music was still inside him, and if he didn't let it out, something would wither. The first note trembled, almost unsure of itself, but the second held steadier. Then, Elio closed his eyes, and everything else disappeared. For a while, he didn't notice the people gathering, or the woman filming him from across the street. He played as if the sky itself were listening, not because he needed to be heard, but because he couldn't help but sing. That was the moment everything changed. Again, it wasn't long before the video went viral. Thousands watched, then millions. A producer from Berlin, the same city where he'd once been dismissed, emailed him a week later. But this time, Elio wasn't desperate. He was grounded. He'd found something better than validation. He'd found joy. In a world that teaches us to measure our worth through metrics, followers, income, outcomes, we forget the quiet, magnetic power of joy. But joy isn't an afterthought. It isn't a reward. Joy is the cause. It's not what comes after success. It's what draws success in. Sean Aker, in his research on positive psychology, found something stunning. When we're happy first, our brains become more creative, more productive, more resilient. In other words, joy isn't just good for the soul. It's strategic. But the Stoics knew this long before the studies. Seneca once said, "True happiness is to live in the present without anxious dependence upon the future." Joy, in its truest form, has nothing to do with arrival. It lives in presence, in simplicity, in alignment. Elio began a practice he called joy mapping. Each night, before sleep, he would write down 3 small moments that had made him smile. A stranger's wink, the way sunlight hit the cobblestones, the way a child had danced to his song. Then, each morning, he would plan his day around doing just one thing that made him feel that way again. These were not grand gestures, not expensive vacations or massive wins. They were breadcrumbs back to himself, and with each step toward joy, more began to unfold. Invitations, collaborations, ideas he never imagined. Not because he pushed harder, but because he tuned his frequency. The energy he once poured into chasing, he now used to shine, and people noticed joy is a compass. It always points toward home, not the one with walls and windows, but the one inside you. It doesn't mean you avoid pain. It means you don't abandon yourself in the pursuit of proving something. The moment you let joy lead, you stop broadcasting lack. You stop begging the world to fill you. Instead, you radiate fullness. And fullness attracts. Want to be loved. Be loving. Want to be seen. See others deeply. Want success. Find joy in your craft long before the world claps. Joy changes the chemistry of the room. It rewrites your posture, your presence, your possibilities. Elio didn't become a star because he finally got noticed. He became magnetic because he remembered who he was when no one was watching. And maybe that's the most powerful thing any of us can do. Not to chase the life we think will make us happy, but to become so joyful in the now that the life meant for us has no choice but to meet us there. Because joy is not the destination, it's the map. Marissa had pictured it 1,000 times. The baby's laugh, the late-night lullabies, the quiet moments where she'd hold someone who belonged entirely to her. But after years of IVF, specialists, and hope bruised again and again, her dreams felt more like cruel echoes than promises. Her doctor's final words rang louder than she wanted to admit. You may want to consider letting go. She didn't cry that day. She just packed a bag and left. No destination, just distance from clinics, from reminders, from the ache that had taken root in her chest. She landed in Nairobi, almost by accident. Following a volunteer listing at a children's center she barely remembered applying for. It wasn't planned, but something about the unknown felt more merciful than the known. At first, she kept her heart closed, smiling, helping, teaching, but only from the surface. Until one afternoon, during a break from classes, a little girl named Kione climbed into her lap and whispered, "You feel like home." Marissa couldn't move. Something cracked, then melted. In that moment, she didn't see herself as someone who had failed to become a mother. She saw herself as someone who already was. She didn't chase that child. She didn't seek her out. But somehow, their paths had been walking toward each other the whole time. We often speak about timing like it's an enemy. We hate the waiting. We curse the delay. But what if time is not working against you? What if it's working for you in ways your mind can't comprehend? The Stoics understood this deeply. Amor fati love, your fate wasn't just about accepting life's events, but embracing them as necessary steps in your path. Even the ones that hurt. Even the ones that stretch on for years without answers. Marissa began writing what she called her divine timing journal. It wasn't about control. It was about noticing. Each day, She would write down the small synchronicities, conversations, strange moments of alignment that seemed too perfect to be random. She started seeing patterns, like how every time she felt most hopeless, something unexpected arrived, a kind word, a new connection, a sudden shift. She stopped asking, "Why is this taking so long?" and started wondering, "What is this preparing me for?" Because that's what waiting really is. Preparation dressed as stillness. You think nothing's happening because you can't see the roots growing. But life is always moving even in the silence. We are trained to expect immediate results, instant messages, same-day delivery, quick fixes. So when dreams take time, we assume we're doing something wrong. But cosmic timing is not clock time. It's soul time. And your soul is not in a rush. Marissa's story didn't unfold because she tried harder. It unfolded because she let go of how she thought her dream should arrive. She created space for life to surprise her, and it did. When she returned home, Coyote came with her, not through biology, but through destiny, not through force, but through trust. And in her arms, Marissa held not just a child, but proof that nothing good is ever lost, only delayed, redirected, or repackaged in a way that honors your true path. Sometimes, life will take you the long way around, not because it's punishing you, but because what you're becoming matters just as much as what you're waiting for. So if you're in a season of pause, don't rush to fill the silence. Sit with it. Journal the strange alignments. Pay attention to the whispers. You might find that the wait is doing more for you than the wish ever could. Because love, purpose, calling, these things aren't late. They're precise. They arrive when you're ready to receive them fully, not just desperately. Marissa stopped chasing motherhood and found herself mothering the very world around her. And in doing so, she aligned with the version of herself who didn't need life to arrive on her timeline. She just needed to show up, open, willing, and trusting. The wait isn't empty, it's sacred. Thabo always felt like an outsider in his own life. Growing up on the outskirts of Cape Town, surrounded by the kind of poverty that silences dreams before they form, he became a master at shrinking, at blending in, at surviving. But somewhere, beneath the noise of survival, there was a whisper that never stopped. One day, you will help others heal. That whisper grew louder after he lost his older brother to violence. It echoed in the moments Thabo sat alone in his small room, reading old psychology books he borrowed from a community library. He didn't know what he was reaching for, but he knew he had to become more than what the world said he could be. For years, he studied, worked, night shifts, saved every cent, not for a car or a house, but to build something he couldn't quite define yet. A place, a platform, a movement, something that could turn pain into purpose. But nothing came easily. Investors didn't return calls. His proposals were turned down over and over. He was told he lacked experience, credentials, presence, and yet he kept showing up because Thabo wasn't chasing success. He was becoming the kind of man who could hold it when it finally arrived. Each morning, before work, he followed a ritual he called becoming. He would stand in front of his cracked mirror, straighten his spine, look into his own eyes, and ask, what would future me do today? He didn't wait to feel confident. He practiced being the version of himself who already was. He wore what he could afford that made him feel like a leader. He walked as if the world already knew his name. He spoke as if people were listening because they would be. Someday, this wasn't fake it till you make it. This was embodying his future before it became visible, and people noticed. Not because he shouted, but because his energy changed. Quietly, powerfully. His presence spoke before his words did. One evening, while volunteering at a youth seminar, he gave an impromptu talk about healing from trauma. A woman in the back listened closely, then approached him afterward. She was a venture capitalist from California, visiting family. She saw something in Thabo, something grounded, visionary, magnetic. Within months, his wellness startup had its first round of funding. But the success wasn't the point. It was the reflection. He didn't attract that opportunity because he needed it. He attracted it because he had become the kind of person who was ready to receive it. We spend so much of our lives trying to get things, approval, money, love, respect. But what if we've had it backwards all along? The universe isn't responding to what you say you want. It's responding to who you are. You don't get love by begging for it. You become love, and then you're met by someone who recognizes it. You don't earn abundance through fear. You step into worthiness, and then abundance reflects that truth. The Stoics understood that virtue character, alignment, inner strength, is where real power lies. They weren't concerned with controlling the world. They were concerned with mastering the self, because they knew everything external flows from the internal. Thabo didn't change the world by chasing approval. He changed it by changing himself, by living in integrity with the future he believed in. And from that place, the right people found him. The right doors opened. The right timing revealed itself. Ask yourself today not what you want, but who you need to become to align with it. Do you want a life of peace? Then become someone who protects their inner calm. Do you want influence? Then become someone whose words are worth listening to. Do you want meaning? Then embody the version of yourself who wakes up with purpose, even when no one is watching. The dream is already yours, but it doesn't land on the version of you that's still doubting, hiding, pretending. It lands on the version of you that knows, the one who already is. And when you become what you seek, the world will rise to meet you. Not because you chased it, but because you finally remembered you were never separate from it. There's something profoundly human about chasing. We chase love, success, approval, security. We're taught from a young age that anything worth having must be hunted down, earned, achieved through sweat and strategy. But when we look at the journeys of Eva, Luca, Yuki, Elio, Marissa, and Thabo, not fictional heroes, but mirrors of ourselves, we see something far more powerful unfold. The truth that what is truly meant for us doesn't respond to force. It responds to alignment. Eva taught us that surrender isn't weakness. The butterfly she chased came to her only when she stopped reaching. In that stillness, she discovered a version of herself that didn't need to prove, perform, or possess, just be. Her story cracked open the idea that life isn't something we conquer. It's something we allow. Luca, the artist, reminded us that inspiration isn't engineered. It flows when we stop squeezing it. When he released his obsession with the outcome and returned to the joy of creating without expectation, everything changed. The world began to respond not to his hunger but to his harmony. He embodied the Stoic wisdom that our job is to act with virtue and purpose, not to grasp at results beyond our control. Yuki showed us the quiet war of belief. She revealed how deeply our inner narratives shape our outer lives. It wasn't until she confronted the silent voice that said, "You're not enough," and rewrote her inner script that life began to reflect her true worth. Belief, she discovered, isn't a passive thing. It's a force. And when we rewrite our beliefs, we rewrite our destiny. Elio's journey pulled us back to joy, the kind that has no audience, no applause, no external reward. He stopped chasing his music career and started playing for the sheer love of it. And in that joy, he became magnetic. Joy isn't frivolous. It's foundational. It tells the universe, I'm already full. I'm already grateful. I'm already home. And from that place, more flows. Marissa's path was slower, more painful. She waited for years to become a mother, only to find that what she longed for would come not through force, but through surrender. She found love where she least expected it, in the quiet space left behind when her plans fell apart. She didn't give up. She gave in to the timing of the cosmos, and in doing so, She received more than she ever asked for. And finally, Thabo, perhaps the most radical of them all. He didn't seek attention or accolades. He simply became the man he once dreamed of being, in embodying his highest self before any external success arrived. He unlocked the very future he had envisioned, not because he demanded it, but because he grew into the version of himself who was finally ready to hold it together. Their stories weave a powerful truth. Don't chase, attract. Don't beg the world to give you what you're not yet ready to receive. Don't force what's meant to flow. Instead, become, align, trust. Live as if what you desire is already yours, not because you're trying to trick the universe, but because you're stepping into resonance with the person you're meant to be. So what's the real lesson here? You don't have to hustle your way into a meaningful life. You don't have to prove your worth to receive love, peace, or abundance. You simply need to become the kind of person who lives from wholeness, not from lack. Let your life be an invitation, not a demand. Here's how to begin right now. Get still. What are you chasing, and why? Rewrite the belief that says you have to earn what should be natural. Choose joy not later, but now. Let it guide your decisions. Trust the wait. If it's not here yet, it's either not ready, or you're still becoming the version of you who can hold it. Embody what you seek. Live like it's already true. And now, I want to hear from you. Which part of these stories resonated with you the most? Was it Ava's moment of surrender? Yuki's quiet rewriting? Thabo's steady embodiment? Drop your answer in the comments. Your voice might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. And if this story stirred something in you, you found clarity, comfort, or even just curiosity, please subscribe to the channel. Your support helps this space grow, and it tells me to keep creating more content like this. Together, let's build a community that lives with intention, depth, and powerful stillness, because what belongs to you will simply find you.